In this video, we're going to do the adjustable support. And notice I start with the empty sheet layout, and we're going to start out with a circle center diameter, and the reference seems to be coming from the lower left two circles, so we're going to start there. So the first circle will have a diameter of 1 inch. I'm going to put another one in, make sure I snap to that center point. It's a concentric circle, 2-inch diameter. So everything seems to be referenced from here. The next thing we need to do is locate the two center points of the slot in the adjustable support. So we're going to do that by looking at the drawing, and there's a radius on there that's 3 inches. So I'm going to go center radius, and I'm going to reference from this center point. I'm going to draw a circle with a 3-inch radius. So somewhere around this radius lies the center points of this slot. So it's real easy to locate if we draw a line and come out the 3 inches, or we can snap to that quadrant. That should be a 3-inch long line. That center point right there would be the center point of the bottom of the slot. So now we need to locate the slot up here, the center point up here. And the drawing shows that it's a 40-degree angle. There's a couple different ways that we could do that. We could go to line, snap to that center point, and we're going to do a polar reference input. So I'm going to use the @ sign. I'm going to type the distance, which would be 3, and then I'm going to need the angle sign or less than sign. This is for angle reference in AutoCAD. I'm going to type 40 for the angle. When I hit enter, you'll notice that the line goes on an angle. Let's check and see what angle that is. So if I go to angular dimension, click on these two lines, scroll out, it's 40 degrees. Okay, so I just wanted to double check that. I can delete this dimension for now. We're going to need it later. So now I have two center points located here. But before I do that, let me show you another way to do this angle. I'm going to delete this line. Go to delete. We're going to use the polar tracking down here. Let's go to this polar tracking, go to tracking settings. And in here, I'm going to drop down, and I'm going to see that I don't have 40 degrees in here. So let's turn it on, and we're going to check mark additional angles. And I'm going to type in additional angles. I'm going to type new, and I'm going to type 40 degrees. Hit OK. Now if I drop down again, I need to put a check mark next to 40. You're going to see 40 down here. So if I go to line, snap to this center point, and then go up, just go up, 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 and you'll see it'll lock in at 40 degrees. So I can come back and snap to that intersection. So that's an additional way that you could draw that line on an angle. I like both ways. So we have these center points now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a circle with a center radius. And that slot has a width of 1 inch, so I can draw a 1 inch or a ½ inch radius circle, 0.5, ½ inch radius circle, 1 inch diameter. So down here, 0.5 for a ½ inch radius. All right, so that gets us started. Now, if I wanted to, for now, I can delete those two lines there just to kind of clean it up a little bit. And I can use these center points for my reference. I could also delete that line there. All right, now that I have the center points located for the slot, I'm going to use these center points to build the rest of the object here. So I'm going to go to circle, center radius. I'm going to make a larger circle here with a radius of 1 inch. Same thing on the bottom. Make a radius of 1 inch. All right, now we're going to continue with doing the outer edge of this adjustable support. The arc that we have up here, we know the radius is 5 inches, and it's tangent to that circle, tangent to that circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do tangent, tangent, radius. So I'm going to choose this tangent, and notice I'm going to go at the lower end to force this tangent, and the upper end over here, force that circle to go in this direction. You might have that circle go in the opposite direction. That's because you would snap inside of here, it takes that circle in that direction. So we're going to choose the radius of 5 inches, and notice how it's in this direction here. We'll go ahead and trim this up before we continue. Okay, same goes over here. We're going to do this arc, and we're going to do tangent, tangent, radius, but what we need to do is figure out what the radius is. It's really not that hard. You have to do a little bit of math. So from this center point, if it's 3 inches to this center, and we know from this center it is 1 inch out. So we have to add 3 plus 1 gives us 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do a circle, tangent, tangent, radius. So I'll do tangent, tangent, and then I'm going to type 4 for my radius, and there we go. We could have just simply typed in, let me delete this. We could have simply went ahead and did a circle center radius and just chose that center point and 4 inch for the radius. But you could do it either way. So let's go ahead and trim this up. And that's not what I want to trim. So let's undo that. I clicked the wrong thing. So go to trim. Let's select this, this, and this. And you want to click what you want to get rid of. All right. Let's finish this arc down here. I'm going to do, down there I am going to do tangent, tangent, radius because I don't know where the center point's at. But I do know it's tangent here, and I am given the radius of 3 inches. So we'll go ahead and trim that up as well. Click out here. Now, I could start trimming some of this other stuff as we go through, but what we need to do is construct the rest of these arcs. And we'll have to do a little bit of math here. It's not hard math. I'm going to go ahead and do a circle center radius, and we're going to choose from here. But let's do a little bit of math. So from this center point to here is 3 inches once again. So coming back a half, if we wanted to put that arc in, we would subtract a half off that, which would be 2.5. If we want to come back to here, we want to subtract 1. If we subtract 1, that gives us a 2 inch radius. So we want to type in 2 inch for our radius. And there we go. We have our arc there. And we could continue. Let's go ahead and continue. We've got center radius would be 2.5, 2.5. And then if we wanted to get this arc up here, we got to go from the center and add a ½ inch. So it's going to be 3.5. So center radius, let's go ahead and type in 3.5. Okay, now we got a lot of lines here that need trimmed. Let's go ahead and trim. Let's trim this stuff here. Now I'm going to choose wisely here on what I want to trim first here. So I'm going to trim this out, trim this out, trim that out, and trim that out. Okay. Next, I want to trim these other arcs here. So let's trim that out. All right. So I have to trim this out as well. So let's go ahead and select these items here. Get that trimmed out. And there we go. So that's the adjustable support object construction. Now what we need to do is get it centered into the sheet layout. And it's a little bit more difficult to center an object that's irregularly shaped. So my little technique that I use, I'd like you guys to use, I like to use a construction line, which for short, I type in X line on the command line, hit enter, and we get a few different options here. The one we want in particular is horizontal and vertical. So I'm going to start with horizontal, and I'm going to snap at the very lowest portion of the object adjustable support and the very upper portion. I'll escape out of that, hit spacebar, which repeats last command, go to vertical, and I'll go to the far left, and then I'm going to go to the far right. So what we did was we created a box around this shape. So now I can go ahead and create a line, snap from corner to corner on a diagonal, and then I'm going to have that midpoint right here, which would be the exact center point of that object. So once I get that diagonal line, I can delete these construction lines. So let me go ahead and get this diagonal line put in on the sheet layout. So I can get that midpoint, go to move, grab this midpoint, snap to that midpoint. Now as you can see, the object should be perfectly centered within your sheet layout. Now what we need to do is put some dimensions on here. It's a little bit of work here to do these dimensions because I want to put center lines in, and I want these center lines to be just right. So we're going to start out with a radius dimension, and we're going to put radius dimension in here. I'm going to put a radius dimension here. So for a while here, I'm going to follow the drawing that we have, and let's put a radius dimension in here. Let's put diameter dimensions down at the bottom. Go diameter. Put these diameter dimensions in. Of course, I have those backwards here. I want to drop this one down, trying to mimic the drawing. Drop this one down here, and go to diameter dimension, put it up here for the outside, 2-inch diameter. Okay. Next thing you need to do is put a center mark in down at the bottom here. Now keep in mind, these center marks here, we're going to change them, but it's nice to have them in there to give us a start. So let's go ahead and change these center marks based on what I want. So I'm going to draw a line from this center point up to here, to this center point. And then here's what I do. You have to follow me on this. So this center point's straight up and down vertical and straight horizontal. I want this center point to follow the arc of this arced slot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to offset. I'm going to use the offset tool a good bit. The distance here is going to be 0.0625 that I'm going to offset, which is a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to offset this line up this way. I'm going to offset it down this way. Okay, so that'll give me an 1/8 of an inch dash. And then the next thing I want to do is offset it again. I'm going to offset another 1/16 of an inch up and down. Okay, now we're going to have a lot of lines here. Well, we have nothing to offset actually, so I need to get the circle put back in there. So I'm going to snap to this center point. I'm going to put that circle that has that radius of 3 inches. Okay, so now zooming in, I want this arc right here, and then I want this to be cut out for the dashes. So this is our trim boundaries. So let's go to trim and select these, and just take this dash out, take that dash out. Okay, so just for right now, we can delete these lines. And you're going to see that we have that dash in there. Okay, so I deleted this line here, but I really didn't want to, so I'm going to put it back in. This line here, put it back in, and now I'm going to offset this little arced dash that I have here. Same distance, 0.0625. I'm going to go ahead and offset this down this way, offset it again, offset it up, offset it again. Okay, so now what we can do is drag this line up to here, snap it to that midpoint, and go ahead and trim to get our dashes here. So we want this area here, we want this to be a dash, we want that to be a gap. Okay, all right, so I can go ahead and delete these items here and delete that here. I'm going to keep that there right now. Okay, all right, so what we want to look at here is, it's a little bit confusing here. I got 2 center marks. So the original center mark we want to get rid of. So what we're going to do is take a look at, remember the dimension here is putting that center mark in. So we're going to, with that selected, you get your blue grips, you're going to right click, go to properties, and when you scroll down here, you can actually turn off the center mark under lines and arrows where it says center mark. Scroll that out a little bit. Expand that out. You can turn off the center mark. Okay, so I did that, but look and notice that it's still there. Well, we have this radius dimension that has a center mark as well. I need to turn that one off. So there's two of them, one on top of the other. If I turn that off, you will see that now we have just that center mark that we custom created with this arc. Okay, we're going to do the same work down here. But if I zoom in, you're going to see that that center mark here is not arced. So we're going to get rid of that. We can do that right now, actually. Just click on it and delete it. You can delete that right now. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this line here and offset it. We're going to offset 0.0625. Offset it up, offset it down, offset this up, offset this down. And that'll give us our trim boundaries once again. Let me get rid of the properties. Go to trim, select all this to trim, and what we want here is we want this one and we want this one. Okay? All right. Now, I could go ahead and get rid of these trim boundaries. And let's go ahead and put our center line in from here to here. Click on it, get our gaps, 0.0625. Make sure ortho's turned on, F8. No, F8 doesn't work on my laptop here. So come down here and click it on. 0.0625 for my gap. 0.0625 for that gap. Okay? Alright, now what we're after here now is we're going to dimension this 40-degree angle. So go under annotation, go and find angular dimension. I'm going to click that center mark and that center mark line, drag out, and notice it has our built-in gap. And that's why I left this line in here. I wanted to show that this gap is good. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that out now. So taking a look at my angle, 40 degrees, that's done correctly. And this circle right here, the rest of this circle, we need to trim it. But what we need to do is we need to trim it to where it overhangs 1/4 of an inch from the object. So I'm going to accomplish that by using the offset tool. And follow me on this one. 1/4 of an inch is 0.25. So I'm going to go ahead and offset this piece of that object. And I'm going to, this arc here, offset that as well. That provides us with a trim boundary that's 1/4 of an inch away from the object. So let me go ahead and select this stuff to trim and select my line to trim. And then you're going to notice this is sticking out 1/4 of an inch. So I can go ahead and delete my trim boundary and take a look. I got my center line sticking out. Okay? Next thing we want to do is we want to dimension this 1 inch inside of here. So when we do that, we're going to use an aligned dimension. I'm going to snap to that midpoint, snap to that midpoint. And if we zoom in, you're going to see these extension lines show up. I actually don't want those extension lines to show up. So we're going to click on this, right click, go to properties, and if we scroll down, you're going to see EXT line 1, EXT line 2. Right now they're set to on. We can actually set them to off and simply turn them off. And then you won't see them. Okay? The next problem that I have is this line is running right down through this dimension text. I don't want that either. I'm going to go ahead and just draw a random line in here. Just draw a random line, take object snap off, take ortho off, and just Draw a random line there. Draw a random line down here. And that's going to be a trim boundary. We'll go ahead and select this stuff and trim out that line so that we can see just the dimensional text. Okay, and that'll be our break too for our center line. Okay. Another thing that I wouldn't mind doing is putting a little gap down here. So watch how I do this. This is just something that I do to make it look a little bit better. Snap from endpoint to endpoint of that center mark. Use that as your trim boundary. Come in here and click that out, and then delete your trim boundary. Okay? All right, so we're getting close here. We have to finish putting center lines in down here. I'm going to go ahead and snap to the top of that center mark, and I'm going to snap to here. I'm only going to make this 1/4 inch overhang from that 2-inch diameter circle. That'll be sufficient. So we're going to take that grip, drag it up 0.0625. I'm going to go to line, snap to that quadrant, drag out 0.25, drag this over 0.0625. Make sure ortho's turned on again. Do the bottom line, snap from here to here. Drag this down 0.25, hit enter. Drag this one down 0.0625, hit enter. Last thing that we want to do is put our center line breaks in the middle of these center lines here. So what we're going to want to do is follow along on this one. We want to draw a line somewhere around this midpoint, but we want it to be perpendicular. So we're going to draw a line to be perpendicular, and then we're going to offset 0.0625 that way twice, and then offset back twice. And that gives our trim boundaries. So go to trim, come in here, get a gap, and then we can delete those trim boundaries, and there we go. We have our center line gap. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to snap to this midpoint, draw a line, and then offset that line twice to the right, 0.0625, and then twice to the left, 0.0625. Just keep clicking the line and offset to the left. Go ahead and trim it. Go to trim, select it, and trim out your dashes, and then delete your trim boundaries, and there you go. You got your 2 dashes for your center lines. All right, we have a couple dimensions that we need to still apply. Go to dimension radius. Didn't put this one in yet. The other one that we want to put in, we want to go dimension radius. We want to put this radius dimension in. We've got to sneak it in here. I want it pointing in this direction of that center point. Don't put it on the opposite side. Make sure all your dimensions fit and have enough room. They don't touch and crowd each other. One thing that we could do, this center mark is visible right here. Go ahead and select that. And right click, go to properties. And once again, come down here. You could turn that center mark off to none. And you're still going to see that little dot. That's going to be fine. You can't get rid of that dot. But the center mark is hidden. Okay? This is the adjustable support. Thanks for watching.